Oh yeah, so it's happened. Yeah. So finally, we have been able to see the first trailer, the reveal trailer for the Nintendo Switch 2. Now this is in itself a massive deal, and I'm going to talk about it. But as you may be able to tell, if you have seen a good deal of my content and also any of my Switch, Nintendo Direct reactions, I'm going to spend a lot of this talking about Mario Kart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off just talking about what we saw of the Switch, my thoughts on that, and then I'm going to move on to the Mario Kart stuff because frankly that's the stuff that has been on my mind. So, the Switch 2. I think it looks fantastic. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Obviously, we'd seen most of this, in the lead up to this trailer, or, just in the last few months. It's been the worst kept secret in all of gaming, really. And all of these leaks have been, coming out. There wasn't really anything new, I wouldn't say. Not really. But I think it was how they presented it, how they showed the original Switch and then it growing and all of the details onto the new Switch. I think that was quite a cool way to do it. I think having a bigger Switch model is going to be quite good. I've only ever used my base Switch. I've never used Lite or OLED, so I'm used to just that Switch. So I think it's going to be weird at first, holding a different size Switch in my hand and just different Switch in general. But I think it is going to be. I think looking at it, it looks quite. I think the size is going to be quite good. Obviously, I won't know that until I get it in my hands, but got a while to wait for that yet. But I do love the just the general look of it, the color scheme for a start. I think making it mostly black it can be a bit dangerous, especially when the Steam Deck exists. I think that the color that they add to the inside of the Joy-Cons, as well as around the analog sticks, I think that's really important to making it stand out. But I think actually going for this kind of sleek, classy look is going to be quite important because they already know that they are going to have, kids, casuals, Nintendo fans down with the Switch already. Those audiences are already sold on the Switch. Now it's just about kind of expanding into, proper hardcore gamers. And as much as a new design for the Switch isn't going to do much to sway them, every little helps. And it's not even that hardcore gamers haven't bought the Switch already, but I just think making it look a little bit less like a kid's console, I guess. I think that's probably what they're going for, and I think it's probably a good idea. And I actually really like the look of it, so yeah, that's great. I've heard a lot of people kind of a bit concerned about the magnetic Joy-Cons for a few reasons. Firstly, the idea that they look quite flimsy, which I don't agree with. Well, it's not that I don't agree with it, but given the fact that we know that they are magnetic through all of the leaks that we've had, I think realistically it's probably going to be a lot more sturdy than you'd expect. And I mean, Nintendo has a very good track record of their stuff not necessarily being, particularly flimsy. It's usually quite tough stuff. It's usually quite sturdy. I mean, the Game Boy is obviously the most infamous example, but even like things like the DS and the Switch itself is actually a really sturdy machine. I mean, I've had mine for, well, it'll be coming up to 8 years now, and that has, other than a few maybe scratches on the outside, it's really not taken much damage from anything. So yeah, I would say I've never really had any concerns about whether or not it's going to be easy to break. Yeah, I think that's going to probably be fine. I do quite like the stand, and specifically how they demonstrated how much it can lean back, which I don't think that's necessarily something I would use a lot, but I do think it's an interesting visual to see. And I think it's, Yeah, I think it's probably going to be quite useful in certain cases. Not a massive thing, but definitely something interesting. The mouse functionality, though, this is something we've heard a lot about. Well, not a lot, but we've heard about it, and it's difficult to really know what to think of that, because how would that be used? And obviously, there's ways that you could use it, but I just can't imagine a Joy-Con being particularly comfortable to use, like, as a literal mouse. If they can make it work, that could be a game changer. It could be insane, realistically, because not only, do you have things like Mario Paint, for example, that you could do, and, games like point and click games would be easier, but also, just in general, I think being able to open up a lot more games that originally have mouse-based controls, a lot of PC games, for example, that could have some insane potential. I'm just kind of thinking, how is that going to work? Maybe they'll do a standalone mouse as well for this. So who knows? There's a lot we don't know realistically, but I think that it's exciting, and I think that just the idea that this is a possibility is just cool to me, honestly. And that's really most of the thoughts I had about the console itself. I mean, obviously, we've got the backwards compatibility. Realistically, we've known about that for a while. 2017, they were talking about the fact that they wanted a lot of their systems, like presumably the eShop and Switch Online, to be carried forward, which would mean the backwards compatibility would come with that if the eShop is. And we'd heard leaks as well, but so backwards compatibility wasn't a surprise. Obviously there's certain games that won't work, but that's probably going to be things like Labo and stuff, so that's great though, that's backwards compatibility is a thing. It's frustrating whenever you have to leave games behind, so good that they're doing that again. But yeah, there wasn't really much to this trailer, and especially not much that we didn't already know. I think that, like, if you compare it to the Switch reveal, very different types of reveal, but and a lot of people have been saying, oh, the original Switch reveal was so much better. Yeah, it was, but it also needed to be. The original Switch came at a very important time where, the Wii U had failed in just the most catastrophic way, and they needed to do something special. They couldn't half do this, and they really hit it out of the park. I mean, everything about that trailer just oozed just confidence, coolness. It showed off what the Switch was all about perfectly. It got people excited with games. It was exactly what Nintendo needed at the time. Nowadays, Nintendo is on top. Nintendo doesn't need another trailer like the Switch trailer, so they just need to, make people aware another one of these is coming, and it is another one. It's not just a mid-generation upgrade. This is a new Switch, the second Switch. Just making people aware of that is all they really needed to do. Throw in a game, to get people hyped. That's exactly what it needed. So yeah, it's not as mind-blowing as the original Switch trailer. It didn't need to be. It shouldn't have been, really. It did exactly what it needed to be, and I think it was still a good trailer for what it was. So, I do wish that we'd seen more, especially in terms of games, because I think that's the one thing that I am always focused on. I don't care as much about the hardware, about the actual console itself, sorry. I don't care much about that. I care much more about the actual games, and that's what I've been interested in. And in a way, I've been very happy that there haven't really been many leaks, or not really many leaks that I would say that I have been super convinced on, or that I think are, oh, we know exactly what's coming now. So the April Direct is going to be good, I think, simply just because it means that we will see more games, frankly, and I'm looking forward to that. But that is 3 months away. I mean, 2.5 months, but still, that's a long time to wait. But one of the things about this reveal trailer that I was looking forward to was having some timescale for what comes next. Not necessarily a release date, although I did think that we might get a release date. Disappointing that we don't have one, but we know it's going to be this year. But I did want to at least know what was next, because just not knowing when you're going to hear information is that especially with something like this, is awful. So at least we know when it is now. But in terms of the release date, I kind of don't want to believe it's going to be a holiday release. I kind of think it could be. I mean, people are saying it could still be summer. I hope so. I would like to get this sooner rather than later, but if you told me that this is a holiday release, I would probably believe you. Yeah, which it is what it is. I mean, at that point, the Switch would almost be 9 years old. That is kind of insane if you think about it that way. So, but you know, the Switch has had a great life for a reason, frankly. And yeah, so I am very much looking forward to the Switch 2. I am very much just like, I just want to get my hands on that console, and it'll be an instant pre-order for me, as you know, I'm sure it will be for many people. But the fact that that's not the bit that I'm just hyping myself about is expected at this point, but it just shows kind of how much of a fixation I have on Mario Kart, frankly, that, it doesn't matter how much other cool stuff there is. Mario Kart is always king for me. So I might as well give in and talk about Mario Kart. So firstly, I think that this... it's weird just how much information we actually have here based on such a small trailer. We only see very little. We see one course, which apparently is called Mario Bros Circuit, if you believe what's on the finish line or the start line. Mario Bros Circuit, which is interesting. More generic than you'd expect for a desert course, honestly. And it doesn't really tie into the theme of Mario Bros really well, as in like the game Mario Bros. So not sure what that's about. But still, the course itself looks interesting, I guess. Looks like it could have an anti-gravity section, just before the finish line. And I think one of the things that has kind of caught a lot of people's attention is the fact that it looks big. Like, that course looks very wide, and that road that you can see them go on at the end looks very long, and I'm just wondering what that's about. There's a few theories. One of them could be potentially maybe a more open area, which could maybe mean an adventure mode of some sort. I would buy that, honestly. But obviously there's not very much information or there's not very much evidence that really points to that. It's just a vibe, I guess. It just looks too big just to be this Mario Kart course. Just, a regular Mario Kart course. So obviously there is the other element, which is the fact that it has been spotted that there are 24 different starting places on the grid, which means that there must be the ability to play with up to 24 players. Now, again, we don't really know what form this is going to take. It could be that the standard base for Mario Kart races has been increased to 24. I kind of doubt that. I feel like they wouldn't necessarily... 24 players is great, but I feel like that feels more like a side mode, so more like battle mode. And with that in mind, I also think that maybe this is a case where only certain courses will be available for it, or maybe that it has specifically designed courses like battle mode does. And the reason I say that is because the course we got, while it looks interesting visually and some of the elements we've seen look interesting, it doesn't look like it'll be a very good course, honestly, to play on. That massive road just looks too wide, too long, just feels like it'd be boring, unless there's something that happens. I don't know. But just in general, it doesn't look very suited to that. And if it's tailor-made to a 24-player race, that I can understand, that I get. But if it was just a regular race course for, the regular modes, that would feel a bit like, I don't know, I wouldn't want to play that most of the time. So, my guess is that there is going to be a separate mode where you can play with up to 24 players. and only certain courses, or maybe, you know, specifically built courses, will be available for that. Maybe that would kind of suck a bit. I don't know, but I think that, you know, I wouldn't mind that, to be honest. But there are, I think 24 players could be great. A good roster will help that, and we have seen a lot of characters, mostly the usual suspects plus Pauline. I think someone did say that they might have spotted a Goomba, but it was so blurry in the background that it's probably not that. I would believe that Goomba would be playable, but I don't think that necessarily does point to it. The designs, though, the visual style of not the visual style, but the character designs. My first thought, and I'm glad that I'm not the only person who thought this, but my first thought was, that looks a bit like Super Mario Wonder. And it's interesting because they really are breaking model a lot of the time these days. So many of the things that they've done, you know, the Mario movie, you know, that had a completely different art style. Super Mario RPG, obviously that, you know, took a different art style because it was the original game's art style. Paper Mario is a given, obviously. But then you also have things like, you know, Wonder. Wonder had a different art style as well. And I didn't expect that to extend to Mario Kart, but it does seem to have. Specifically Peach, we can't really see a good image of her. I will get back to Peach in a minute. We can't really see a good, you know, view of her, but she does look to me kind of like her movie version, or maybe her Wonder version. I can't remember. I'd have to have another look. And then Mario himself, I immediately thought that kind of looks like the Mario from Wonder, which again I think is a good thing. But Donkey Kong is the one that had people convinced, because he looks so much like the movie version of Donkey Kong. It's insane, and yeah. And it does make me feel like maybe they are trying to move these characters towards having new designs, or just generally not having as much, you know, having such rigid designs as they have done for so many years now, like 2 decades. The designs have basically not changed, and they are, you know, obviously these designs aren't massively different, but they are different, and I think that that's notable. So I think that that's great. I think it's great that they have, you know, a new art style, new, you know, character designs. One of the interesting things about Peach specifically, though, I said I'd come back to her. She's riding a bike, but she's not wearing her biker suit. Now, this actually is something I was kind of expecting. If anyone remembers, Jesus, if anyone had watched that far back in my videos, when I did my original series of videos about what I would do if I made the next Mario Kart, I said that if I was in that position, I would make it so that all of the characters, the princesses, they would just be able to ride their bikes with their dresses on, because it just allows for more freedom when it comes to alternate costumes. Because think of it this way. Let's say you wanted to put Peach's wedding dress in the game as an alternate costume. How would you do that? Because at the moment, you know, that the princesses have to have their biker costumes when they are biking. But would that mean that you just don't have Wedding Peach able to use the motorbikes? Or would you do a separate design that's based on Wedding Peach, but it is a biker costume? Or what would you, you know, just limit what costume, just not add Wedding Peach? I don't know. Basically, the idea is that having the rule that they either have, in karts they have to have their dress, and in bikes they have to have their biker costume, limits what you can do with the alternate costumes. So to me, seeing Peach wearing a dress whilst on a motorbike kind of confirms that they're going the alternate costume route, which isn't exactly a massive revelation. I think that anyone could have expected it, especially considering they have done alternate costumes before anyway. But I think it's still nice to see and to get a little bit of that confirmation of that. So that was kind of one thing I spotted that I hadn't seen many people talk about. They talked about, you know, the fact that Peach was in her dress, but not what that could mean. So that's my contribution to this. But there's other things as well. So, for example, the Wonder Seed. There was a little glowing thing that people spotted. I think it was at the diner, just outside it, just outside the entrance of the diner, and people were wondering what it was. But it does, if you look closely, it looks like it has the two eyes that the Wonder Seed have, and it has the same kind of general shape if you really kind of look at it. It might not be a Wonder Seed, obviously, but it looks like it could be. And this reminded me of years back. I did a Mario Kart concept, of, you know, I called it alternate dimensions. And the idea was that every single course would get an alternate dimension. You could activate, you know, a portal in any race, and you would be taken to an alternate dimension which has the same map layout but has some visual and gameplay differences. So, for example, you might go to Maple Tree Way, but instead of being an autumn tree, it is more summertime vibes. Or maybe you would have a dry desert, which is actually an underwater, you know, underwater beach or something like that. And it was just things like that where the theming in some way is changed or, you know, altered, you know, to just make it different. And I think a while later, when Wonder was coming out and when it came out, people kind of started to say, oh, you know, maybe they could add Wonder Seeds to, you know, to Mario Kart. And this actually just sounded, from what people were saying, very similar to what I came up with in my my dimensions concept, alternate dimensions concept. So if that's the case, if that is a Wonder Seed and they are, you know, it's going to add some funky effects to the courses, I think that's really awesome. I think that would be a really cool way to shake up races. Obviously, I think that's something that, you know, when you're doing versus races, should be a toggleable option. Because I think, you know, there might be situations where you don't want that. But I think it still would be a really cool thing to have. So that would be cool if that's what it is, but we don't obviously know that it is. Just a few other little things, like Rosalina is riding a snowmobile, which is interesting when you consider the idea of customization, because how would that work? You know, this snowmobile doesn't have wheels; it has treads and you know, skis. And how would that work with having, you know, either being able to take other you know, another vehicle's wheels, or even more crucially, its wheels being put on another kart? I kind of get the impression that this might mean that customization is in the bin. I originally thought, oh, a lot of the wheels look the same, so it looks like customization is back, but I could see the customization not coming back. I've never been particularly keen on customization, never hated it or anything, but it just never felt impactful, and I never found myself really falling in love with vehicles like I did in previous Mario Kart games, especially Wii. So I am perfectly happy for customization not to return if that's what this is. We don't know. The only other thing that really I noticed was just the different design for the boost pads. I think it just looks really nice. It's really pretty. I like the designs for the boost pads. That was it. I've got all of my points written down. That was the point, boost pads. I just like the look of the boost pads. So, in general, I am so excited for this game, even though we know nothing about it, but it is Mario Kart, so, you know, Mario Kart has rarely disappointed me. I just can't wait to see what this is all about. I think it's definitely going to be, you know, shown off in the April Direct. I just, you know, waiting that long is going to be difficult, but yeah, it is what it is. We just got to wait for now. And in terms of like other games I want to see for the Switch, I mean, I did my prediction already, which is already wrong, which I expected. I have to admit, I have been very hard on the idea of, oh, there's no way that Mario Kart could be released, because, you know, that team worked on Mario Kart 8, then they worked on Mario Kart 8 DLC, then they worked on ARMS, then they worked on Mario Kart Tour, then they worked on, you know, the updates for Mario Kart Tour and the BCP as well. They won't have had enough time to, you know, do more than a little bit of this game, but obviously I didn't account for the fact that I believe Mario Kart Tour is actually made by a separate team, which I didn't think was the case, but Apparently it is. So yeah, they've had enough time to make a Mario Kart game. But yeah, so but in terms of other games, 3D Mario seems really likely. I don't think that Legend ZA and Prime 4, Metroid Prime 4, are going to be Switch 2 games. I think that they are just they're only going to make one version of the game. It doesn't seem worth it to do anything otherwise. Pokemon always, stays on the last console anyway, so that makes sense. And Prime 4, I just can't see it being a dual release. I don't know why they would put time and investment into two separate versions of the game. So I think that, they'll still be playable on the Switch 2. I just don't think they will be. Realistically, it's difficult to say what else we could predict. I think 3D Mario and Mario Kart are the two really obvious things, especially considering they are, both. This is the Mario 40th anniversary, so it makes sense to have a little bit of Mario emphasis. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on everything we've seen about the Switch and about Mario Kart, whatever it ends up being called. So, yeah, I'll probably do a reaction to the April Direct. I'll have other videos out before then, hopefully. Other than that, have a nice, well, here it's night, but have a nice day, evening, morning, night, whatever it is for you.